Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. I am your host, Kelly Meehan, a citizen of the universe and a passage keeper and mentor for our new Earth children. I believe we are entering into a new psychic structure of our reality, and it is meant to embody deeper trust and ways into solid self-love and fearless integrity. Our new world energy of spirit babies needs us to consciously create within conception, trust pregnancy, and have freedom to birth and parent from innate wisdom. This is Spirit Baby Radio. Welcome to episode 207, March 2025, Light Language for the Healing of Our New Earth and Spirit Babies. What is light language? How does it heal us and support us? Are we ready for new changes within the energy of the new Earth? I have a special guest here, which you will be able to see her more on the YouTube, but you can hear her through the podcast. Hi, Tania.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to read a little bit about Tania, but I always like kind of begin like how we met and how we connected. And I met Tania in this group, and I've never done groups like that. And I just love, like, you never know what energy you're going to kind of, connect with, because usually I'm like, I hear something, I get inspired, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they come on my podcast. And I went on her show. Say the name of your show on
New
YouTube.
Earth Consciousness. New Earth Consciousness. Yeah.
Like, yeah, and we had such a great connection there in a conversation, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if Tanya would come on my podcast. And she said yes. She's here. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
that was a
yeah,
super fun conversation. Yeah.
I know, and I
I
felt like
remember it.
she lives kind of not too far from me, and I'm not like she's on the radar if I travel way up into the PNW, up there northwest. Yeah.
hmm
I had to think about that geographically. Yeah, so special guest episode here. Tania Gonzalez-Ortega is an artist, a visionary, energy healer, and educator with over 2 decades of experience in energy healing, education, and spirituality. Her journey began with a profound kundalini awakening, leading to a miraculous healing through an encounter with Christ. Since then, she has studied with spiritual masters in India and the US, immersing herself in the teachings of non-duality and expanding her intuitive gifts, including astral travel, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and light language. Through her work, Tania guides individuals, families, businesses in deep soul level transformation. Her sessions awaken the crystalline light body, activating powerful healing energies that restore balance and connect and abundance. Tune in to hear Tania share wisdom, experiences, and healing insights that inspire and uplift. And that's her YouTube. I'm going to say it. New Earth Consciousness. I love it. Thank you, Tania, for being here. There's so many things I want to explore with you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
As I was reading that, I was like, okay, I know I talked to, I do want to dip into light language, but also family constellation. And also, maybe we'll reverse it back a little bit. I feel like this is a nice story, a foundation. Like, how did you get into, I mean, there's not probably not one moment, but maybe there is, where you were like astral travel, like, how did this all come about? Is it
Yeah.
like something in a moment? Was it younger, or was it just over time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had kind of an earth-shattering Kundalini awakening, and it was back in the year 1999. And I think that's what opened up the realization of the astral realms, because in the Kundalini experience, I mean, it just had its way with me, and so yeah, I was kind of catapulted into these different realities that would happen during my sleep, and even some moments during my waking life where I was like, wow, I can read that person's thoughts, and stuff like that. And so it was a really wild ride, but it was also really painful too at the same time, because the physical body was, it was just, yeah, brutal, right? Like I was being reconfigured in a way. Um, but it, you know, it eventually resolved in like you had said, it was in that encounter with Christ, which I had no connection with before. So kind of fast forward, I started to kind of, um, at least with the astral travel, I recognized that there was this kind of, this sort of entryway that would always happen. And at first, it was, I mean, I guess people call it sleep paralysis, right? That's where
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you're being, to me, it felt like there's all this energy and I can't move. It felt like I was being electrocuted, kind of. And then, boom, like suddenly I would be somewhere else. And um, over the years, I came, and I don't know, people have different theories about the, you know, sleep paralysis that, like, oh, it's unprocessed trauma. That could be true. Um, but what I learned to do to train myself is that when that feeling would come, I'd be like, "Oh, okay. I'm getting ready to go into the astral realms and go traveling around." And so, anyway, so all these things were very spontaneous, and and that's when, you know, I just had so many different, just interesting, very just mystical experiences of various kinds, and and then fast forward to, it was after the birth of my second son. Now, granted, all throughout this whole time, like I was drawn to Reiki as part of my healing process, and then I got into something called crystalline consciousness technique, which was also really profound. You know, just kind of being opened up to the reality of the quantum and all this stuff. And it was in 2000 and I want to say it was 2012. Maybe, yeah, I'm trying to remember, like, okay, where was I living? Um, where I was in that space between dreaming and wakefulness. Like I was, you know, I was just resting. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna give myself some Reiki. I'm just gonna chill out. And all of a sudden, like right before falling asleep, this language came out of my mouth, like it was, and it came out with such a force, like it was almost, it had this sensation or this feeling of like having been repressed for so long, and then suddenly the lid got, you know, taken off, that these words that came out of my mouth, and I would suddenly, I would wake up and I was like, what was that? I mean, it was so strong,
Mm.
like my mouth was just like, you know, and and I think it was around before the light language came. I remember having this sort of, you know how when you have dreams that are of a different nature, like you have your regular mumbo jumbo dreams of just the mind's just blah, 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 like, you know, processing and
Like
stuff.
subconscious dreams, I call them, like the
Yeah,
day or
just,
yeah.
you know, weird dreams. And then there's dreams that are like very, they have a different quality. And so this was one of those dreams where it just felt, it felt much more like, you know, astral travel or something. But I was being shown, like I felt like I was out in the stars in the galaxy, and there, and I was light language was being shown to me. This was before I experienced it, and it was made of light, and somehow I just had
Mm.
a knowing, like, oh, this is a language, but they're using light. So it was very, it's hard to put, because we don't have that here, right? Like, or at least not visibly, to the naked eye. But the light language, it had movement, it had light, it had intensity. It was really
Mm.
intense, like electricity, you know? And I was like, oh, this is light language. So, so then when I had that experience of the spontaneity of it, I remember asking my teacher at the time, the woman that I was studying crystalline consciousness technique with, I was like, what is this? Is this something to be concerned about? Like, that's what I initially thought. I'm like, am I being possessed by something? Like, what's going on here? I mean, I didn't know. It happened a couple times. I mean, I think maybe by the third time, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask because I don't know what this is. And she's like, oh, it's, yeah, it's just light language. It's just the veils are very thin for you, and it's nothing. It's a good thing, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I kind of, So what's interesting to me, there's a connection here. When I was going through the Kundalini awakening, it was felt more like a dark night of the soul. My encounter with Christ happened directly after these couple of men prayed in tongues over me. And of course, at the time, as they're, it sounds like gibberish. I mean, I really thought, I was
Mm.
like, what is this? Like, I've definitely, like, I am out on a limb. I don't know what's happening. Like, what am I doing here? But at the same time, I was like, what do I have to lose, you know?
Mm.
And so they were praying over me and they were kind of prompting me, like, go ahead, start speaking. Like, kind of like, just let it flow. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just start babbling nonsense. That's how this is my mind, what it was thinking. And so what was interesting then as I started to allow myself to speak it, um, I literally felt like all this darkness leave my body. That's the only way I can describe it. And then it was immediately after that, my depression was completely gone. It was just like that. After years of like trying all these different things, it was wild. And so, but then I didn't touch it at all for, oh my God, I mean, more than a decade until it really spontaneously showed up. So it was something that I kept in a closet for a long, long time because I just thought people are going to think I'm a weirdo. I don't even understand it fully myself, really,
Yeah,
I mean, to
yeah.
be honest. But I started seeing it kind of pop up in more places, other people that were kind of, public about it. And then, yeah, and so then I finally just surrendered. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to bring it into the work that I do. Um,
Do you have, I know you have an offering of light language. Do you have anywhere where you can hear it? Like if somebody were to go on your YouTube or on your website?
oh
Think for a
yeah,
moment. Yeah.
I
Do
think
you?
I think there's when you go to my website and you sign up for a newsletter, there is a recording of you know, activate your crystalline light body, and it's includes light language. So if people want to hear
Yeah.
it,
Because
they
why
can
I say
definitely.
that is because throughout the years, light language has come up in my space. It's not something I know how to do, but I
Mm.
do know that when people are like, well, what does that mean? Or what is this about? Like you said, it's like I feel like, yeah, it's a language just like Spanish, math. There's all kinds of languages, but this, when you were explaining it to me, I felt like in my own body, it felt very kinesthetic. Like you said, you're trying to articulate it, but maybe there's no articulation because it's like, it's multidimensional, it's light. And now I could send people more to you, like this is what it is. Because I tell my clients and people that pass through is like, well, you could, I said, just Google it. I'm not going to go deep. It's like Starseed. I'm not going to go deep into it. You go figure it out. Like, you got to like kind of feel into it. But what I do know from my own experience with light language, um, I had somebody that I've worked with for years, a somatic therapist actually, and she's like, "Can I do light language with you?" And I'm like, "Okay." And she's done it twice, and I really loved it. And the first time, I felt like I wanted to cry. I
Yeah,
had no idea why. The second time, I felt like I was able to translate it energetically into words
yeah,
because I know me, like I've been a spiritual detective in the Spirit Baby messaging for like over a decade. So you tend to go, okay, like why can I not put energy into words? That's literally what I'm doing all the time. And again, like I agree, like I feel like the same as you do is like I don't maybe fully understand it, but and I could see why you'd feel like what's happening, but I think it's so profound. Like that's such a, and I want to go back, something I wrote down here. You said the word brutal, like the
mm,
feelings, the emotional body of like you're in this Kundalini experience, you're going from like a birth and maybe a very fast birth
yeah.
into this whole other reality. And I've heard people spontaneously healing from cancers and tumors and depression and anxiety. And I think that is really profound because it just shows you that there's so many different experiences that we can have. And of course, some part of you was obviously open to it, right? I mean, on some level, right? Would
Oh
you
yeah, I
say?
mean, I was seeking, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I was fervently seeking. Like and it was just all through my journey with art actually that led me to really this deep inner reflection of, I suddenly became very aware of the mind. And I was like, what are these thoughts? Like, where did they come from? Like, is it the chicken or the egg? Like this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And and then when I started to meditate, I was drawn to meditation. I don't know how I came across meditation. I think it was Alan Watts I started reading. Anyway, I was just naturally attracted to Zen and
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism. At the time, I really wasn't attracted to Christianity or Christ at all. Um, Yogic philosophy, all of that. And so I guess as a young person, I just felt like this can't be all there is.
Mm.
Like I just really felt like I remember walking down,
What age range were you in when you said young person? Like, what does that
yeah,
mean?
like 20.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
like a
mean, when I
spiritual
was,
opening in 20, would you say? I feel like it's like people talk about midlife crisis or the end of, I feel like there's something between that teen and coming into adult, right?
yeah, well, because you're on your own and you're
Yeah.
kind of just thrust into the world to make sense of it for yourself. And yeah, and I just remember just feeling, I was walking down Santa Monica Boulevard. I don't know why I remember this moment, but it just really hit me. I'm like, none of this makes sense to me. Like I just didn't know, like, what
You were
is,
like seeing the illusion of this world, like totally
yeah, yeah. I was like, no
what
way,
the
man.
timeline, like what is time? Like what's
What are all these people
happening?
doing? Like, what are
Well,
we,
when
what's
you're
happening
walking
here?
down Santa Monica Boulevard, isn't that a song?
Probably.
What year was it that? I'm curious. What year was that, would you
That
say?
was, let me think now. It was probably 1995. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
94, 95. Yeah. And but yeah, once I heard about enlightenment, this
Mm,
idea that you could transcend, I was just very drawn to that. It
mm,
just something, and obviously, I mean, I've come to realize I'm like, okay, yeah, I've been chasing after enlightenment for many, many lives. Right?
interesting. I know. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that because aren't we all? I
Right?
like that you said we need a shirt that says chasing after
I
enlightenment
know, like,
because yeah, I totally get it.
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, when I was in the ashram, teaching yoga and all that, I mean, I remember having this dream. This is what fascinates me about the subconscious and dream work, especially
Mhm.
because in this dream, I saw like this line of yogis, and they were all connected by this golden chain. And
Mm,
um, I just remember at some point, some time, that dream being validated because it said something in the yogic scriptures about being connected to the lineage via this golden chain.
mm,
And
mm.
eventually, like the goal is to actually break away from the
Yeah.
chain, right? Um, but I was like, oh yeah, okay, I've been doing this for a while. And yeah, so there's
Well, you talk
that.
about the golden chain, and I do want to step into the family constellation because, yeah, I think we all have this golden chain. We're like all chained and connected to the lineage or to the family, and some of us very subconsciously, probably a majority of people, right, acting and being in a certain way or feeling, the push of it. But also, I want to let me reverse back a little bit. Is astral travel? I know that that word could feel like, what does that mean? And I want to say that like probably a few weeks ago, and I think she listens to Spirit Baby Radio, so she's probably like, "Oh, that's my story."
Uh-huh.
Where I really tuned into her body, where I saw literally three portals, maybe, and I say three because I'm trying to bring it into this like understanding. It was almost like cosmic swirls of like energy where I knew she was astral traveling, and she did confirm that. And I want to just kind of somehow create a space of normalcy that some people are really strong nighttime travelers, is what I would say.
Mhm.
Have you seen that with others? And what can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that yeah, I find it really, I'm always kind of blown away when I meet somebody and they're like, yeah, I don't dream. I don't recollect my dreams or anything. Like my son, he just doesn't have dreams. And
Hmm.
even my energy healing teacher, she even admitted, she's like, yeah, I don't dream very often, but I know that I'm traveling in different dimensions or whatever. So I don't
Mm.
know why that is. But yeah, no, there's definitely, and there's certainly people who are very skilled at it. Like I wouldn't say that
Yeah.
I'm skilled. Like I
Like
can't,
lucid dreaming, you'd say? Like, what do you mean by
yeah, lucid
skilled?
dreaming,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
example, right? Like, which is a form of astral
Yeah, I'm not
travel.
good at that.
No, the only way that I know how to, the only time when I lucid dream is when I'm extremely sleep deprived. And then that's
Oh,
when
interesting.
the lucid dreaming happens. I almost know when it's going to happen because I'm like, okay, I'm not sleeping. At some point, I'm going to slip into a lucid dream. And sure enough, I do. But yeah, who likes to be sleep deprived? I don't.
I
So,
know sleep deprivation is terrible, but I feel like even talking about that, I feel like sleep deprivation, like people will say, well, there's a trauma, right? It always comes back to some trauma around Earth. And that, not to minimize that, maybe that is a part of it. But what about the trauma of multidimensional traveling and not being able to come back to the body
yeah,
quick enough or feel like because this we are energy, right? And but we are matter into energy. And so this vessel, it's like, whoa, but you're right. Like having good sleep is friggin' incredible. And I'm always wondering what kind of tips can we give people that feel like exhausted and they're like interdimensional traveling and maybe they're going into wars and like, but they come back
yeah,
feeling something. But I haven't found the remedy for that. And maybe there isn't just one remedy.
yeah. I think, well, there's, yeah, I mean, I think we can definitely become imbalanced in that sense in our astral bodies
Yeah.
where we're not spending enough time being in the body. And so I think that there are certain practices that can bring you into the body more. For me, um, it's what I do is I do handwriting, believe it or not. Like I practice the Vimala alphabet. For me, that's
Hmm.
very much like weaving the head, heart, and hands together. It's kinesthetic, it's spatial, it's wiring the brain in a certain way. Um, and then there's form drawing as well, which comes from my Waldorf background. So form drawing definitely has an influence
Mm.
on your etheric, on your astral, on the ego even. And so, yeah, I think that certainly, escaping this reality into these other realms
Yeah.
can become, a distraction, right? So, like anything, I know that in studying yoga, they often said, I mean, the scripture says, like, if you acquire certain cities, Siddhis, which are basically, certain powers, spiritual
Mm.
powers like clairvoyance or levitating or, all this kind of stuff, that we can suddenly acquire these powers. But then what happens is then people can get lost in that and thinking like, oh, because now I can astral travel, or now I can read people's
Mm.
minds, or now I can do this and that and the other thing. I've made it, which is not, it's not the end goal, right? They show up. You can, I guess, as long as you don't fall into the trap of like, of just being distracted from the true goal, which is to know yourself, right? Um,
I
yeah, I
mean,
don't know. I felt
I
like the
really
need
I
to
love
say
that you
that.
said that. The true goal is to know ourselves and that there can't be an obsession. I think this is good with the meta senses and people
Yeah.
like, especially with spirit baby communication, like I gotta master it. I gotta, make it a certain way. And it's like and I tell this to a lot of women, especially, is like, don't get caught into one practice of communication because
Hmm.
then you're going to use mind and mental energy and then you're going to feel like ungrounded. So we have to go with the flow that it's going to be different. Like you can have communication through writing. Maybe
Hmm.
you're like sitting in meditation at the window and maybe or you're having dreams, daydreams, night dreams. And I feel
Hmm.
like that's so important that you said that because I feel like that's, I call the new earth human is like, being in one place or another, because there's some things that I get very curious about, and that's going to be on Spirit Baby Radio. Someone that does teach and know telekinesis, right? I'm like, that's really cool. I'm going to have that come on here, as well
Yeah.
as just other people's stories and experiences. And there was a woman I had, and you may really enjoy this, quite some time ago. Now I can't remember her name. I could see her in my head. This is me with names.
Yeah.
Where she was teaching. Like, can you see her in my head right now, Tanya? Like, I do this. I see the people. Because I'm very highly visual. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah.
And you talk about the writing. That's how I do my sessions. I write pictures and draw. And even I'm a doodler with my journal. I took all my in my graduate program. I like literally looked at my notebook. It was all doodles. Just like really intricate doodles, though, very
Yeah.
intricate. And I'm going, wow, what did I learn? But that's how I was able to take in the
Yeah.
word information. Anyways, coming back, this woman I wanted to share, she was teaching others and her daughters how to use blindfolds and to see.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I've been playing around with that idea, like maybe because I had it happen once just randomly, right? But then I
Yeah.
was like, I think I may overthink, like, what is, and
Yeah.
it's really quite fascinating. It's like your eyes are closed, but you can see everything. I'm like, and I think my mind's like, let's see where we can find it and then recreate it. And I think that's where we get in trouble, right? Because it's like lucid dreaming for me too. I remember walking out in my old house into the living room and I was like, I am dreaming right now and I'm walking around the living room. It was so exciting. Could I
Right?
recreate that? No. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like, and I
Yeah.
say this because yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, you're pointing to something that this Zen teacher said once that just really resonated. It's Adyashanti. He said, we have these experiences, and that's all they are.
Yeah.
And we want to, like you said, we want to recreate them. We want to go back there. I remember
Yes.
the time when I was meditating, I was in such peace. And how can I
Yes.
go back? And it's like, you can't. It's like, it's just, everything is just happening and flowing. And the more than we can accept that we're going to have a variety of experiences and we're not trying to control the outcome,
Mm,
then we're just trusting our evolution. But I think that, I was going to say something about oh, now I lost it. Okay, never mind. I'm going to pause it. Maybe it'll come back to me. But
yeah.
I just, um, yeah, I appreciate that you said that, because it's true. We wanna be able to recreate, and then the thinking mind gets in the way, and we really have to. Oh, this is what I remembered I was going to say. It's like I think it really kind of boils down to if we have these gifts, if you're able to say see with a blindfold or whatever it is, you're able to, there's people that can do remote viewing,
Yeah.
things like this. I think the question is, okay, so how is it useful?
Mm,
So if we're connecting it with service in with love, then I think then it's a very powerful thing, right? But if it's just becomes a sidetrack, distraction, let's say, then it's actually, I don't know. That's my feeling about like when we talk about New Earth, it's like, okay, well,
yeah.
great. We're waking up to all these new and amazing gifts. And how are we going to use them now? How
But
can we use
yeah, and when you say that, I think of what we do as humans, we get attached. So what
them?
is really non-attachment? I know that we can plant that seed in our mind, but I know for me, even over the past weeks, I've been in practice. I have to say practice because I've romanced the painful past in my physical psychic body in a way, not that I wanted to, but it became just a habit. And to unhinge from that was very difficult, painful, and it's still in restructure. And so I'm like, wow, Kelly, like, and I want to offer this to everybody. And it's not easy. I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future, supposedly, right? I'm going to try to be right here, right before me, right at the tip of my nose, right with my breath. And I have found life to be so much more amazing.
Yeah, right.
I'm not like, and we had like weeks ago, we had a lot of stuff on our plate to the point where I was so tapped into the drama of it. I felt like I said, I can't do this and I'm not doing it. Like I made this very clear and I started moving into whatever the deeper levels of my own self-care were to
Yeah.
go, okay. And then so I'm reminding myself, honestly, it's like no matter what's happening, even if I'm feeling sick or my cycle, my luteal phase is a very activating time for me, but I'm like, I'm okay. Like I'm right here. Don't
Yeah.
go over there. Don't go back there. Like but it hasn't just happened overnight. And
Yeah.
I'm sure I will dip back into the gunk, I feel like when we're shifting in the new earth, it's like the golden chains. I'm like, am I cutting them off? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening? But we've also in our family, between me and my husband, with his dad going, his dad passed 8 months after my dad passed. And then I have my mom, and like the mom and dad energy is huge, right? With the chains and even the psychic chains. And I was like, wow, they've evolved for us. They're not in this atmosphere, they're not in this space. And now it's like coming more together, even though, grief is terrible and it feels so intense. But it's like, I'm not forgetting the past, but I'm trying to, keep that energy where it needs to be.
Yeah, no, so you're
That
saying
makes sense.
something really,
Yeah.
really important because, like, to speak about family constellations, so Bert
Hmm.
Hellinger is the creator of it. He says very clearly that we don't ever want to cut ourselves off from our ancestors or anyone
Hmm.
in our family. Like everybody has a place and we're connected to this order of love. So when you say like, no, I want to honor that, I'm like, yeah, because you want to be connected because you are part of this evolutionary thing that's happening, right? Through the people that came before you. And and so part of the family constellations work is uh, giving back what doesn't belong to us. So there are things that we
Mm.
inherit, right, that are not helpful, addictions or just patterns of thinking and that sort of thing. So we have to do the work of teasing apart the the pattern or the behavior that came from somewhere to begin with versus like, okay, what is the soul essence of the person? So, if you think of your parents behind you and then their parents, etc., on back, there are things that happen in the lineage that can get
Mm.
distorted, right? And so they show up in our life because we're trying to resolve that. It's very much in the subconscious, unconscious mind. For example, for me, I struggled a lot with health stuff when I became an adult. All this health, with the Kundalini awakening, all that stuff, like all this health stuff came up to the surface. And I struggled with it for years. I mean, years and years and years.
Wow.
And I remember when I was working with my teacher, she said, well, all this health stuff that you're going through, Tanya, isn't yours. Most of it is not yours.
Wow.
It doesn't belong to you.
Yes.
I was like, okay, well, what do I do with that? And so I remember my very first constellation that I received, which was by chance because I went to like a free workshop and I got to be the one that was
Oh,
the
that like the
person,
yeah,
the
yeah.
recept, the one that
Wow.
received. And
Yeah.
so I got to see my family constellation played out. And boy, could I see the trauma and the pain in my mother's lineage. Oh my God. I
Wow.
was like, I had no idea. I had no idea. And once I stepped in, boy, it was so cathartic. It was so unexpected. That's the thing. It was such a the whole time that it was happening, I was watching it like it was a movie, like an entertaining movie. Like literally, I was like, wow, this is a
You're like the
trip. My
popcorn.
eyes are like totally, yes. I was eating popcorn, just going, wow,
What's
keep it
happening?
coming. Like this is really weird.
Wow, yeah.
And then at the end, the facilitator had me step into the constellation itself as myself. So the person representing me sat down. And if you guys
Mhm.
listening don't know what family constellations is, Google it on YouTube. You can find there's a great Netflix series. I haven't watched it yet, but people say it's wonderful. It's called
Oh,
Another Self. It's a Turkish
really? Okay.
series all about family constellations. So anyway, I step into the constellation. I could not control it. My whole body started to shake. Like
Wow.
just like yeah, like all the trauma was being released and of course the tears and all of it just like blah. And And so, yeah, it just really, to me, what it revealed is, yes, our connection to our ancestors and all they had to go through for us to be here, but also the power and giving it back, and just the fact that the knowing field exists here for us to be able to
Mm.
access, that we can feel it in the body. Like, it's so
And
profound.
yeah, you said something that was just like got me like all sparked up, and just so many things we're talking to feel so meaningful for me, even personally. And I know with the family constellation, I like that. Yeah, research it, kind of see what it's about. But I would say go to Tanya for that kind of work because I'm thinking about like even I experienced it once and I barely remember. It was in Santa Monica, California, talking about Santa Monica. And it was like in my 20s and it was just emerging into the spiritual world. And I think we're very similar is that we like to process shit really hard. Like, let's see
Yeah,
what's coming. Like, I like,
right.
yeah, because some people are like, oh, they're a little bit like, I'm gonna take it a little like easier, but I'm still a lot like that. And I remember standing in this room and getting up out of the chair, and we're in this kind of circle, and I think it may have been a free thing. I can't even remember. Or maybe it was a donation. And I remember the thing I remember was someone represented my mom and my brother.
Mm,
And at the time, and this is my older brother and my mom, and at the time they didn't move to California until like 10 years later, both of them, by the way, who said they would never move to out of New Jersey. And they both died in California before me. And I was like, this, it's like crazy when you go back and look at all this. And I
yeah.
remember just being almost, I must have had this inner goofy smile of like, what the heck is happening? Because the person that was my brother started, and it could have been a woman too, was acting like my brother. And
Yeah.
then the mother, I was just like, what is and there was this shift in healing. And my mind was so like just taking it in, like almost, that kind of you like, you're like, what just happened? You're like kind of excited, but not sure.
Mm.
And I feel like I may have gone back. Now it's just such a faded memory, but I'll never forget that because I was like, there was something about it that provided healing, but I just didn't even know what that meant. And when another piece, when you were saying that, I was thinking there's a lot of women that struggle with multiple losses, specifically, or infertility. And I could really see family constellations being very beneficial with would somebody like let's say you have the family and you're this is your expertise not mine, would there be living men and women bodies that would be like the baby or the child that got lost, like, or not lost but the child that died, like is that a thing that would show up in that space?
Oh, yeah. It showed up in my first constellation. I guess there's a so the facilitator is looking for for cues, right? They're observing your body language and everything. And so the woman that was standing in as my mother noticed that she was looking down on the ground. I come to find out later that when somebody does that in a workshop, in-person workshop, they look at the ground, that means that somebody has died. And so the facilitator said, "Did you miscarry?"
Ah,
And my mother said, "Yes, I did. There was one before Tanya and one after my brother, David." And it blew my mind because I knew nothing about these two miscarriages. And
yeah.
so it definitely, so yeah, so she brought these two people to come in and stand in as the miscarried children.
That seems really powerful.
Well, yeah, because I
Yeah.
spent my whole life thinking I was the oldest.
Wow.
The first child, and I really was.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a first disorder. So those two
Yeah.
miscarriages were never given a place of belonging. They were nothing. They
Yeah.
were
Oh
nothing
my
to
God.
my
When
mother.
you just said that, I
Yeah.
got little chills on my shoulder. Like there was no place for, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you do the spirit baby stuff. It's like
Yeah.
when a child is, whether it's an abortion or a miscarriage
They
or
still
stillbirth,
exist, right?
they
They're
still
still,
exist. They still
yes.
have a place.
This is
They
what
still
women
deserve to
don't
be acknowledged.
understand
Yeah,
sometimes.
they often
Yes.
think like, oh, it's just a lump of flesh. That's
Yeah.
I mean, sorry to be so graphic, but that's
Yeah.
how my mother viewed it. Oh, they were just lumps
Yeah.
of flesh. It's like, well, actually, no, they're not. They're more than that. And so that's the
Yeah.
reason why things can come up. And you know what's really trippy about that, Kelly, is that during my college years, I did this painting of these two figures that were in like a membrane that had like
Oh,
a
wow.
needle going through. I mean, it wasn't an abortion, but it was like
Yeah.
two figures, and I didn't know where they were. They kept coming in my drawings and things like this. And my mother, she kept the painting for
Oh,
herself,
yeah.
not telling me what it was for her. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so isn't that fascinating? It's
That
just
is
like
so fascinating.
these
So
things
it's
come.
like we should acknowledge we have spirit siblings.
Yeah,
Then I must have a lot because my mom said she had like six miscarriages
yeah,
before my brother, and she lost a more fuller term girl. And
yeah,
I always wondered if that was me, to be honest.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
I was like, am I coming? I'm not coming because after she conceived my brother, which was very challenging and there was a lot of stuff happening, and she also has a heart-shaped uterus, which is
Oh,
like physiological. That's like a thing.
yeah.
And so when I was born, they said before I was born and conceived, they said you'll never have any other children.
Oh,
And let alone she had a girl, now she's her son, and I was coming. It's like yeah, I do really I just ran an inner infant workshop because I do feel like it's important for us to know our own foundation, and that could be a big healing, I think, for all people, but especially if there's a fertility struggle or issue, or especially unknown infertility, right? There's so many different parts to that. But
yeah,
something else you said, and I want to kind of shift back into the same conversation, but this felt really important. It's something I brought up in my program not too long ago is we take on so many other things. You talk about like I see so many people in anxiety and depression and they think it's just all them. It's not, I mean, and yeah, it's a real experience, but I'm like, is it really you though? Like, and we don't say that enough, I don't believe, collectively to people and the world, because I think when you say that, people feel like, well, are you telling me it's not real, or are you minimizing it? And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I know I've had a lot of chronic physical issues, which I'm starting to see the deeper psychic energy in that. And I
yeah,
don't want to do it anymore. And
yeah,
I'm not just saying it nonchalantly, like I'm having to go into really deep releasing with it and restructuring to see what is this relationship that has been ingrained in my reality, into my energy field from my past. And that feels important because I see so many people walking around as you do with like, where do I belong? Where do I ground in? And depression and anxiety, I feel like pick what you got. Are you the anxious? Or you like, it's like there's like a menu now. Like there's no, I haven't really met anybody. I'm trying to think even. I mean, I get it. You can dip in and out of depressive feelings and anxieties, but a lot of people are like in it all the time, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that that's definitely true. I mean, it, the yeah, depression, anxiety, things like this. Yeah, it does feel very personal, and and people oversimplify it in the sense that they tend to tell you, "Oh, you just need to change the way you think."
Oh, is that terrible?
Right? Like just get some cognitive behavioral therapy and call it good. It's like, no, no, no. There's so much more. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just mental, it's
Yeah.
physiological. It's yeah, we definitely oversimplify it. And I mean, for me, I think that when you do tell someone the truth, which is it's not all you, like you didn't do this to yourself,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, oh,
That's a
okay.
surrender and release too, right? Even those words. I saw a huge shift in my class when we said, why are you identifying with other people's fears and emotions? I saw the shift all around the room and I was like, in the Zoom. But it
Uh-huh.
was like, it made me think like, if we're really pure and light-bodied right now in this very moment in present time, we are healthy and whole. We like
Yeah,
really are.
yeah.
And when those energies come of disharmony, well, I always feel like deal with it, get unattached, deal with the emotion, and then move forward. Like
Right.
easier said than done,
Easier said than
honestly,
done.
though.
But it's
But
true. It's true. I'll never forget this one time my brother had said to me, and I was kind of having like a moment of feeling like my depression was coming back, or I was starting to feel, and it was kind of, it was concerning me because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go back into depression again. He
Yeah.
said, he gave me the best medicine. He just said, okay, so just feel your feelings. Like, sit with it. Is it
Mm,
really that bad? Like, what's the worst that would happen if you just let yourself feel depressed, right? That was, and so
yes.
I stopped myself and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just feeling sad. And I
Yeah.
can be with it. And
Wow.
it took the charge away of
Hmm.
the fear, right? Because we're always judging ourselves in any one. I mean, well, we're kind of taught to do that, right?
Yeah.
It definitely allow, again, like you were saying, like you can just be in the present moment, whatever is showing up, and just being with it. It allows, I feel like it opens up a doorway. That's how it feels like to me. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
if I really allow myself to be in the present moment and I'm not trying to control the outcome, I'm not
Hmm.
trying to make myself be a certain way, and I'm just allowing, then it's like you said, that's when life gets to be really interesting.
Yes. Like I want to like cut in there because it's like it's not your identity.
Yeah.
Like stop, let's stop doing this,
Yeah.
everybody, and let's stop identifying like, yeah, I get the chronic physical things and I become this thing. It's like that's the identity. The depression is the identity. You know how many people say I'm ADD, ADHD. I'm not minimizing those nervous system dysregulations, everybody. But what I'm saying is stop identifying. That's not who you are. That's just a byproduct of energy that you're working through. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Like
totally.
it's kind of like you wake up, it's like you get a stomach ache, you eat too many donuts, and you just have to process it through your body. Like I want to, I want to bring the lightheartedness because I know I've been that person that was deep in my shadows, and then the realization, and I know as humanity really starts shifting over this time, I feel like we have an opportunity right now to release so much more than we ever have. So why not do it? And I would think about when I say the word romancing, because I felt like I would romance those shadows. And I was just like deep in it, like the grief or the just extremeness of emotion. But it's fine. I need to be there. But then when am I leaving it? Because you could spend forever in that place, right? And then you're like, what, like, oh, and I'm not denying or like, going, oh, well, that's really not a feeling there. It's like, I'm going to go outside and breathe some fresh air, or I'm going to go call a girlfriend up, or maybe I'm going to do some art right now. Like, I'm like actively like taking personal responsibility and I'm not making the feelings go away. Like, let's say, it's like, let's say there's grief and there's like, I get very like, when I go into deep grief, I don't want to eat. Nothing tastes good. I'm very weepy. I'm like, and maybe even tired. I'm like, so then let me be there. Like, why am I judging myself for something else? And then I've noticed because the grief space is so big for me, is that grief is all the time here, but not in that deep traumatic way. It's just kind of here in and out. And I just hit the death anniversary, and people are like, oh my gosh, how are you? What's happening? And I'm like, I'm actually okay.
Yeah.
And I think because I have this, I've never had before. My brother, I've never grieved with someone that we both love someone the same. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That exploded into my mind days ago. I was like, that's what made it different. Before I was by myself and nobody shared that love the way I did with that person.
Yeah.
Like my older brother, like who, and my younger brother did, but I didn't get to grieve with my family because it was just too much at the time for everybody. And they
Yeah.
don't want Kelly in the grief pod because my presence is gonna make them feel more. Like
Yeah.
I know where I stand in the family. So
Yeah.
I had to do it on my own, which I realize now was moments of goodness, but it was really hard. And
Yeah.
this time I'm like, there's more celebration. And
Oh man.
he's the past. We love him and we laugh about him, we curse about him, we joke about him. It's just like, but me and my younger brother, we're all about living an adventurous life, we say. Can we just be in the moment and just have fun? And that's what dad would want anyways, you know? It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the meaning of life is to live it, and
Yes.
you said something there I feel like is really powerful, which is, to me, it seems like there was a level of vulnerability that was allowed between you and your brother, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I recently, just like super recently, like 3 days ago, had this moment with my oldest son. Now, life has been hard for him and
Mm,
us, both of us. He lost his father to suicide when he was
mm,
15. And so, it was this long struggle and confusion and all this stuff. And, he's doing well. He's at school now and doing all the right things and trying to be strong and, all that kind of stuff.
mm.
And here I am also trying to be the strong one for him as well.
Yeah.
And I got to see him this past weekend, and we just had this really beautiful, vulnerable moment of me being able to share to him, like, Lucas, like I don't have the answers. Like, life
Yeah.
is hard, like, there's all these things that are happening, and it's just hard. Like, we could just both
Yeah.
lean into it and be like, yeah, it is flipping hard.
Well,
And
just say it. Let's say it, Tanya. It's fucking hard.
yes, thank you. It's fucking hard. I wasn't sure if I was allowed.
I'm from New Jersey. The F is like the normal
Ah, okay.
terminology.
Yeah. And so there was something, and we actually got to weep together.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. There was like, it
Wow.
was so liberating. And in that sharing of that grief and that vulnerability, I felt like our bond, our loving bond just got
Mm,
stronger. It's
mm.
like, yeah, dude, you don't have to have it all together all the time. I don't. We're
Yeah.
in this together. Like, I don't have
And
the
that's
answer,
the thing.
but
You're
we
in
have
it
each other,
together.
right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have each other, you're in it together, and you don't know what's going to come next, but there's such a deepening. And it really pushes me to look at consciousness as a whole, is that we really do need each other. Even though, as my friend said, we come in alone, we leave alone. Yeah, but alone is a perception of this world, because I don't feel like we're ever actually alone, right? And that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, that is
But
true.
well, I appreciate, oh my gosh, there's so many different awesome things that we really connected with. And I want to, now we're coming to the end. I want you to share ways that people can contact you. Maybe they want to, the language. I said you had, I know you had that offering, and I listen to it all the time, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
And I love it. I love listening to the language of it. It's just very powerful. And family constellation. And I feel like you'll see more of Tanya. We're gonna connect more, and bring her back to Spirit Baby Radio or something. I feel like there's more
Something.
of something.
Yeah, why
And
not?
yeah, share us your website, or however people can contact you. And if there's any upcoming things happening very soon, since your
Sure.
podcast is going live very soon.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, newearthconsciousness.com is my website. There's a page on there. It says resources. I think you can find the light language there. Um, and there's other videos there that you can watch, family constellation demonstrations, things like this. Of course, you can subscribe and get the free light language activation. Um, and what I have coming up is a family constellations demonstration. The focus is what connects us to money. Um,
Nice.
and
Yes.
yeah, so I had a part one, which is up. We were looking at what blocks us from money. And then at the end, what was so beautiful about this workshop, at the end, someone said, yeah, after looking at everything that blocks us, I'm curious as to what connects us. I'm like, brilliant. Let's do one on that. Like, I'm really so that's happening. That's free. If anybody wants information on that, just sign up for my newsletter. Um, you'll get an announcement about that. That's on next Friday, which is, I don't know the date. What is it? Like the 12th, the 14th? I don't know. Anyway, so that's happening. And then of course, I work one-on-one mostly with people. I have a 3-month one-on-one program. People want to dive deep into healing and transformational work. I love working with creative visionaries. So if you're feeling like blocked in your creativity, or you're just like, oh, feeling frustration because you want to, bring something to life, but you're carrying a lot of baggage that you want to get rid of, then there's that. Yeah, so my website has everything that you need to find, so you can check it out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tanya, for being here. And this was a great conversation. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having me. It was great.
And yeah, I
Fun,
love
as
it. I
always.
know. Always fun. And I want to thank you all for joining episode 207, March 2025, Light Language for the Healing of Our New Earth and Spirit Babies. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio with your host, me, Kelly Meehan. Please join my community and stay in touch with monthly energy rants, Spirit Baby poetry, and get access to Spirit Baby 101 with tips and practices at my newsletter at newearthchildren.com. And join me on Instagram with lives at Spirit Baby Medium, and join the Mighty Networks, the Spirit Baby Collective membership, and Motherhood to Mediumship. Remember, you are the heart that holds communication, and it is your time to connect. Come share in the great shift of your mind and the true spirit of your heart with Spirit Baby Communication.